This is Algebra 1, Lesson 4D, number lines. So a number line just shows all of the numbers in order, or the numbers you're talking about in order. It reminds me of a thermometer. If you take a thermometer, like I have pictured right here, and if we can zoom in, you would have numbers on your thermometer. Maybe it's at 20 degrees, 30 degrees, and going up. Each of these, what we call tick marks. And then there's some even smaller ones in there. So each of those tick marks may be 5 degrees or whatever. They're in order. If you lay the thermometer on its side, like I did here, you have a number line. So when we have a number line like this, a lot of times we'll put 0, we'll pick a point and put 0 as the middle point, or you don't have to have it in the middle. You just have to keep your numbers in order. You could have something like this. I'm going to draw a line, and I could put 0 way over here. If I'm not talking about any positive numbers, I might put 0 there, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can do it any way I want. I just need to keep those numbers in order. And you call 0 the origin. Its technical name. And we can put the other numbers, we can put negative numbers, and they would count back from 0 to the left, and the positive numbers counting from 0 to the right. We're going to graph some coordinates. Now, what does it mean, graph? Well, that's one of the vocabulary words for this section. And it's basically just plotting that point, drawing that point. Like if I'm going to graph 2, I would come up on this number line, and I would just put a dot on 2. So that 2 would be the coordinate, and this would be the graph of it. So let's look at some of these coordinates. Okay, and we'll just use that graph above it. The number 3/4. Where would I put that? Well, I've seen a lot of students over the years. I want you to think about where you would put it. I've seen a lot of students say, well, that goes between 3 and 4. Is that where it goes? What's a number between 3 and 4? Well, 3.5, 3 1/4, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. It's going to be more than 3, but not quite 4. But the number 3/4, if I were to draw it, here's a circle. I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces, and I'm going to color in 3 of those pieces. It is not even a whole. So if you were going to graph 3/4, it's less than 1. But it's more than 0, right? So it's going to have to be somewhere in between 0 and 1. Just like I cut that circle up into 4 pieces, I'm going to cut the space between 0 and 1 up into 4 pieces. That's going to require making 3 cuts. I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut each of those halves in half. That was 3 cuts that I made, but notice it made 4 pieces. There's a piece. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have these 4 pieces now, and I want to talk about 3/4. So I'm going to go from 0, and I'm going to go over, and I don't start counting until I move. So 1, 2, 3. This would be the point 3/4. It's between 0 and 1, but it's a little closer to 1. All right, let's look at the next one. 2 6/10. What 2 numbers would that be between? Well, it's more than 0. It's actually more than 2. Is it more than 3? No, it's not all the way to 3. 2.6. So that's going to be, if I could divide it into 10 pieces if I wanted to, but that's getting kind of tiny. I'm going to estimate this one a little bit. 2.5 would be in the middle, right? So 2.6 should be just a little bit past that. So I'm going to leave my estimate there for a second and say that 2.6 would be about right there. And then I don't need my estimate anymore. Now I'm going to look at the next one, negative 1.5. Well, the negatives are on the left of 0. Negative 1.5. I'm going to start at 0 and go back to negative 1, but I have to go a little bit further. I have to go half of the way to 2. So negative 1 and then a half more. So that's going to be, cut this space up into 2 pieces by making 1 cut, and I'll put a point there, -1 and 1/2. Once you plot your points, you can answer this question. Which number is the greatest number? Well, our greatest numbers are always going to be going to the right. And our least numbers are always going to be going to the left. Left, least. So that's helpful. So which one is the greatest? What's going to be the one furthest to the right? And we can see we put 2.6, the furthest to the right. So we'll put that there. And the least number, all the way to the left, is -1 and 1/2. So when you're plotting these things on the number line, you can use that picture to decide, put the numbers in order. All right, opposites. Let's look at this question. What is the opposite of having $5? All right, it's your birthday, you get $5. That's great. So you've got 5, +5. What would be the opposite of that? The opposite would be maybe it's somebody else's birthday and you give away $5, right? So I'm subtracting $5 from my money. Or maybe you borrowed $5 from somebody, so the opposite would be owing $5. So it would be a negative. So the opposite of a positive is a negative. The opposite of -5 would be +5. So let's look at this on the number line. Here's 5. Here's -5. Look at the distance from 0. 5 is 5 in this direction. -5 is 5 in this direction. They're both the same distance from 0. So when we talk about opposites, opposites are going to be equidistant from the origin, but they're going to be in opposite directions. So the same distance from the origin, but in opposite directions. So what would be the opposite of -2? Let's find -2. It is 2 away from 0. So let's go 2 away from 0 in the other direction, and its opposite is 2. So it's helpful to be able to think about that on a number line. I know you probably can just look at -2 and say, well, if it's a negative, its opposite's going to be a positive. And that's right. And the opposite of a positive will be a negative.